project started by researching the Afro-Dalit project. And I built a huge library of what they're up to and who funds them. And they are very much active in Tamil Nadu, building up a whole network of youth, and they do youth empowerment, youth training, to give them an alternative sense of history, that they are historically a kind of oppressed people by non-Dravidians and things of that sort. And the church has a very good vested interest in it, because if you can dislocate their identity from the rest of India, then you can also reprogram them and give them a new religion and so on. And this is called the Dalit Stan project. So I invited myself to this scholar's office, and I saw this map. There's a map of Dalit Stan that he got hanging there. On the northern part is Mughalistan, which is from Afghanistan, Pakistan, all the way to Bangladesh, northern India is Mughalistan. And this is sort of this turns out to be what Mullah Omar says. He says he wants to put the flag of Taliban on Red Fort of Delhi and recreate the Mughal Empire. That is his agenda. And the southern part of India is Dalithistan and Dravidstan. So these guys are working on it. So I was very amazed that nobody talks about it. I never heard anyone notice it. And yet these guys have an open project. If you go to Google and search Afro-Dalit, you will come across a lot of hits. Please do that. So anyway, then I started getting deeper into it, and I found that there is merit in a thesis which says that local minorities are being appropriated by global nexuses, the Afro-Dalit being just one example. So Hegde's disruptive forces of 1992 have now turned into a frontier mindset. India is now a frontier of these kind of wild things happening. Local minority is co-opted as a branch office of some global nexus. Many minorities are part of some global majority and are used for transnational agendas. Third world intellectual franchises are set up to deconstruct their own nations. It's very interesting that America's own sense of nation is becoming stronger and stronger, and also the nation in China, the nation of Russia, the nation of Japan, and those guys are not deconstructing, and they're not going out of style. And European Union is becoming a very strong supernation. But somehow the intellectual fashion of the day being exported to Indian intellectuals and third world intellectuals is, please go back to your country and deconstruct yourself. And we haven't asked them to first do it to themselves. Now you will say that there is a lot of postmodernism in American campuses, and they are doing it to themselves also. But they are doing it from the fringes. The people who are doing it do not have clout. They do not have, nobody takes them seriously. The media doesn't quote these kind of people. They are not policy makers. They do not influence think tanks. They're just some in a cocoon in the academy doing some deconstruction of America. But the powers to be are very patriotic, and the nation state is as strong as ever. So this also led me to question the definition of minority. And I want to leave this provocation with you. If you were at a McDonald's in Delhi, and you have a local establishment with 20 employees, you would not say this is a minority establishment. You would quickly say this is part of a global empire. This is part of a huge global multinational. Someone could say that all these 20s are from minority classes in India. You would still not be convinced, because as individuals working there, they may be minorities in their personal capacity, but the institution they're working for is a branch office of a large multinational and not a minority. Now, why would you not apply the same thing if the Southern Baptist Church, or the Baptist Church, which is a huge multinational, set up a big network of churches in Nagaland and in Tamil Nadu, and they have a plan of 20,000 churches in South India. So why would you call those minorities and not call them branch offices or subsidiaries of a global multinational? Why is it that if the product being sold is God's love, then all of a sudden the rules of multinationals don't apply just because they're selling God's love, and therefore God's love is exempt from scrutiny and transparency? I would submit to you that the definition of minority has to be modulated, and if a minority is working for, funded by, appointed by, trained by a foreign global nexus, then it is not really a minority. It is a part of a big enterprise, and that enterprise should be studied rather than this isolated 20, 30 people in a place being called a minority. So I even provoke you to rethink the definition of minority itself in this age of globalization. Now there's a new positive India discourse in the US business schools. This is what Fiki, I think, and myself, I am also from a similar background of industry. This is the discourse we like to hear. And finally, India's time has come, because I lived there for 38 years, and only in the last several years, this new positive discourse has started. Otherwise, it was all this other kind of discourse that I mentioned earlier. Now, there is a positive focus on investments, markets, labor pools, and all of that. So what we have are two competing discourses. There's a positive discourse which says build up India, and this is primarily in business schools. So when my friends want to donate something for the study of South Asia or India, I always tell them give it to the business school, don't give it to South Asian studies, because South Asian studies are built on the fragmentation of India, why India is a problem kind of thesis, built on the old humanities and social sciences. Yeah? And now the irony is that both these views are also entrenched in India. In India also, you have the technocrats, industrialists, those kind of people who believe in a positive sense of India. And then you also have people in the social sciences, and a lot of those social science theories they've imported, they've been franchised and all that. Not that problems don't exist, but they believe they really don't have that much faith in India as a nation. So you have both voices within India also. Now this is a potentially troubling slide, as if the previous ones were not, but this one may be more troubling. I'm going to give you a hypothetical scenario for US intervention in India. Suppose South Asia becomes the epicenter of USA versus Islam, which can happen. And it's no longer Iraq, and it's no longer anywhere else, it's South Asia. And they land, they double the troops in Afghanistan, which Obama wants to, which they have no choice, I think they have to. But suppose the Taliban take over Pakistan, which is something 10 years ago I wrote a paper on it, and nobody wanted to publish it, they thought it's too sensational. But today they think it's a realistic possibility. The way it would happen is Taliban take over ISI, and ISI take over the Pakistan army indirectly, and Pakistan army, we know, runs Pakistan. So you could have a democratically elected facade, a nice front for PR purposes, but they really don't make the decisions, they don't call the shots, they don't have any power. It's even worse than having Musharraf, because at least there it was transparent that you're dealing with the army. Now they're able to fool you into thinking that you're dealing with some other group who really don't have any power. So let's say under such a scenario, Taliban take over Pakistan, and so now you have a nuclearized Taliban. And let's say the US is fighting, but years go on, and the casualties build up, and the US got economic pressures at home, and another election is coming. So this turns into Obama's Iraq. It turns into this fight in this Afghanistan, Pakistan against Taliban escalates, and it becomes Obama's liability, and then there is a desperation to exit, but exit with honor. So let's say Obama or a future president has to then figure out a way of exiting. Now when the US exits, after having flared it up, it's going to be a pretty bad mess that somebody has to then encounter. And then guess who is going to get the brunt of it? And I think that will be India. And I would also surmise in this hypothesis that Taliban will then have their vision of setting up that Mughalistan, which was in the map earlier. They will say we also have enough disruptive forces sitting in India that we can incite, and we can then get going a huge revolution to do this. The United States are not going to help, they're going to gone, and they already tried it, they're gone, and now we're going to take over. United States, number two, the United States may also have another kind of intervention in India, which is to safeguard Christians being persecuted. Now you may think this is a far-fetched thing, but there was a Wall Street, what started me on this research path was a Wall Street Journal front page article 2-3 years ago titled US Evangelists Driving Foreign Policy Interventions. If you want, I'll get you the URL of that. A very long article which showed that there is a 100-year history of evangelicals not only driving domestic policies on abortion and gays and nowadays on stem cell research. Very successfully they've been able to modulate policy, but also very strong on foreign policy. And on foreign policy what they want is that the United States should intervene wherever there's a pocket of Christians who are considered to be under threat. And once the United States agrees that that is a policy, then they go and actually sometimes stir up trouble and use that to bring the United States intervention in there. Now the dossier of such cases of persecution of Christians in India is growing. It is well protected. It's a huge dossier sitting in the United States. You can go to various places and you can see all their cases, their footage and all that. and there are hearings regularly in Washington